Okay, Hypoic Man here. Last week we were talking about the addiction machine. Here's the graph of how Hypoic Feel OK system makes an addiction machine out of the decision-making apparatus and where intervention works best.
As you can see in the diagram, there's a star around the ATB, the autonomous thinking belief, which is the best place to intervene because all the other parts require either genetic engineering or medications, which we don't use because they get us addicted. The autonomous thinking belief is where you believe your own thinking. And because that's where our disease is, we can't trust our own thinking to get us out of the trouble we're in. And the only way to intervene on the autonomous thinking belief is with another person who's in recovery, what we call a sponsor. And the recovery program for this particular problem, hypoism, requires the constant use of the sponsor in helping us make decisions on a daily basis.
Can you define sponsor? Some people may not know what a sponsor is.
A sponsor is a person you choose because you appreciate their recovery, but he has certain requirements. He has to be doing hypoism recovery actively himself, which means he has to be participating in the group. He has to have his own sponsor, and his sponsor has okayed him to be a sponsor. He's someone of the same sex, and he's committed to take care of you 24 hours a day.
Okay, so now what is the difference between going to any of the 12-step or other kind of recovery meetings out there and Hypoics-not-Anonymous? We'll forget the non-anonymous part right now, but what's the criteria?
Hypoism recovery is based on the actual pathophysiology as manifest by that figure of the decision-making apparatus. Whereas the 12 steps are based on supposition and superstition. There's no physiological basis for the 12 steps. They were made up at a time where nothing was known about how the brain works and how addictions occur. And it's not surprising that they barely work.
So what's the criteria for coming to a Hypoics-not-Anonymous meeting? Do you have to admit that you're an addict, heroin or alcohol, or
we don't use addiction as a criteria for coming to meetings. Our meetings are about hypoism, and the recovery process is from hypoism, not from any particular addiction. Although addictions are dealt with by the recovery process, the main emphasis is on hypoism. Recovery from hypoism, not recovery from a specific addiction, which means we deal with all addictions. Drug addictions, including alcohol, behavioral addictions, people addiction, whatever addiction you happen to have, that will be dealt with. But the main emphasis is on dealing with the feelings, thoughts, and behavior caused by dopamine activity deficiency. That's what we deal with in our meetings, we emphasize recovery, and we discuss recovery methodology and how we're using the recovery program at our meetings.
So we don't give pills to change how people feel.
Well, the whole recovery process is not about changing how you feel. It's about acceptance of how you feel. And taking the behavioral course set out by your sponsor, irrespective of how you feel.
Let's talk about surrender.
Well, there are four parts to the recovery, repeated 3 times. First time is for your primary addiction. The second time is for all your other addictions. And the third time is for specifically your people addictions. And there are 4 processes that you go through in the recovery. One is, the first step is acknowledgement that you admit you're a hypoic, that you have hypoism, and that hypoism is the cause of all your problems. The second is realization. The realization that your genetic, your specific genetic deficiencies are the cause of your behavior. Not your stupidity, not your being an asshole, not your being a bad person, and not having voluntarily caused all these problems yourself on a conscious level. You've got to realize that this disease works unconsciously and worked against your best interest even when you thought you were doing all these things voluntarily. You weren't. And that's an important realization that then leads into the third step, which is surrender. When you knowingly surrender your will to your sponsor, and your sponsor gives you specific directions about various parts of your life as they come up in your recovery. And the last step is acceptance, that you make a commitment to do what your sponsor says, 100%. Those 4 steps will change your attitudes about yourself, get you to understand yourself more realistically, and allow you to change your behaviors in a loving, healthy way. Like I said, in 3 different areas. One with your primary addiction, one with your other addictions, and lastly with your people addictions, so that you can have healthy relationships.
Okay, in summary, 4 steps, 3 times. These are the behavioral addictions on the back of the book, Hypoics-not-Anonymous. Any questions? Send us an email. Ciao.